Hey everybody, we're back. It's Wednesday again. It's that halfway point during the week that at least I know I look forward to. Sit back, have a drink, read some good stories. What more could you ask for, right? It's like the reward for getting to like the middle of the week, right? I also love how right as I start the stream, my bot in the channel in Twitch and YouTube says, "Hey, did he make a narration mistake? You can hold him accountable by doing flub." I haven't even started yet. You give me a second, bot? Just give me a second. Like, it's gonna happen. You don't have to like preempt everybody. I mean, come on, you know? I'm trying to be a professional here. Speaking of that, great show. I mean, it's not really a show. It's kind of like a live stream read, but you know what I mean. Great stuff today. We're kind of doing this thing where we're revisiting some of the books that we've done in the past. And if you're looking down at the bottom of the screen here, or on Instagram right here, right around the nip level, as it were, you can see the title there, Bookstories by Sarah Tollok. We've done this one before, but we're kind of doing this thing where we're going back and rereading all the first chapters that we've already read so far. I was kind of running into this problem where I was, and I guess rightfully so, letting my, audiobooks and like paying clients, their work take priority over doing some of the demos that I wanted to get out from these kind of first chapter reads. So I figured out a way to live stream from my actual recording booth and set up the screen and the software so that you can kind of see what I'm doing. And do a whole read over again so that, we kind of get that kind of secondary exposure of everything. Like again, you get to see it again, you get to hear it again. And you get kind of a behind the scenes look on what it takes to at least produce a first chapter of an audiobook, what goes into it, because, you get yourself an audiobook and more or less it's just perfect, right? It's just, it is what it is. You you don't hear any of the mistakes, nothing like that. I mean, you shouldn't, right? Because you want a good audiobook. That would definitely distract you from the story, but it kind of gives you like an inside look into the whole process. I think it's kind of neat. I don't know. We're trying it out. People seem to like it so far. So, let me know. Let me know if you do. But that's what we're doing. Centurion. The sexiest voice on the net. I don't know about that, but I'll take it. Centurion, if you don't know, I'm going to put him a little shout out here in our Twitch and YouTube that I'm streaming to. If you're on Instagram, this probably doesn't make sense to you, but on the other channels, there's a way to like shout people out if they're streamers as well. And Centurion's a really good friend of the channel. He is actually, little known fact, the #1 black hat wearing streamer on Twitch. Australian black hat wearing streamer on Twitch. Need I say more? Go check out his channel. He does a lot of variety gaming, and fantastic gentleman to watch his stream. I've been watching for a while. He's kind of like a history nerd like me, so I enjoy talking to him whenever I get a chance. So, but thank you everybody for joining in on Twitch, Instagram, and YouTube. That's where I have him on my screen. That's why I'm like pointing in these weird directions, probably seemingly to you. But Whiskey Wednesday. What is a Whiskey Wednesday without the whiskey? Am I right? What are we drinking? It's a mystery. Did you figure it out? I put some posts out on social media. I give you a hint. The hint was 46. Did anybody get it? Anybody get what I might be drinking? There's that little pop of the cork, because we're not going to have a pop of cork today. That's how it is. Anybody get it? The mystery is right here. We're going to be drinking Maker's Mark 46. Now, Maker's Mark 46, and you'll see on the side of the bottle, it says French oaked. What does that mean? Well, if you're looking at the chat here in the various platforms, I'll read it to you on Instagram. I'll read it out for you. It's the first line extension to the Maker's Mark range since the 50s. Maker's Mark 46 is essentially the standard expression with a little bit of added spice. This bourbon was not intended to compete with the core expression. Instead, it's a cousin to it, something different for those who like spicy whiskey. And they add this extra dimension by inserting seared French oak staves into the barrels, and the stave with the profile number 46, thus the name. I think that's pretty cool, right? I like Maker's Mark. They're I think one of the, well, at least one of my favorite times I've had it. There was this little bar in Oklahoma City, and it was called Maker's Cigar and Piano Lounge. And what do you know? They always had a special on Maker's and ginger. Now they used regular Maker's Mark, but just a great combination. I've kind of liked it since then. I'll drink Maker's by itself, But usually I'm mixing it with ginger ale or, like a Coke or something like that. But I still think it stands good by itself. And Maker's Mark 46, I mean, as you can see, I've been into this bottle maybe a little bit. Maybe maybe a tad. Maybe a skosh. A skosh, right? Skosh? I think it's skosh. Maybe a skosh. Maybe a bit. It's good. I enjoy it. I mean, all the tasting notes that they do on like scotches and like even wines for that matter. I don't get that sometimes. See, did I leave it up on this one? I don't think I did. It's interesting though. Probably find it again. Oh, there we go. I think I left it up. There we are. Maker's Mark. They always leave like these tasting notes, what you're supposed to taste, and I don't know. Yeah, this one doesn't have it. I'm not going to search for it. It's not that important, but they give like the profile on the nose. What do you smell? Toffee, and walking through a cedarwood forest with elves and I don't know. I get none of that, but I mean, it smells sweet, and there's a little bit of spice to it. Like kind of peppery almost. Not quite pepper, but like you can tell there's like a spiciness to it. And then, what it tastes like up front, and then how does it finish, and all that kind of stuff. The fancy tasting notes. I mean, it's sweet, but it definitely has more, I guess, complexity would be the word that the fancy pantses would use in terms of tasting. It's just more, there's just more to it. There's more flavors mixed in there. I can't pick all of them out. But the longer that you sip on it, the more you're kind of pulling out of it. I do get a little bit of toffee, which is interesting. And there's something in, like, I think it's probably kind of like the oak kind of coming across in it a little bit, because you get that kind of more aroma than flavor to it. But it's good. Check it out. If you're a fan of the Maker's Mark. Well, also, another reason I kind of picked it is I thought this was really cool. I don't know if it'll lead to anything, but I signed up to be an ambassador for Maker's Mark. And as one of kind of the perks that you can get outside of the, they send you like deals and discounts on things too, but you can pick out a barrel that they'll put your name on, and then they'll age it. And then like 5 years from now, you can go to their distillery and have a glass from your barrel, which I think is super cool. So that's in the process right now. And if I get any updates on that, I'll let you know. I just thought it was kind of neat. We could have like a 4, 5, 6 stream Maker's Mark. I don't know. I thought it was kind of cool. I'm a dork. I know. But, I thought it was cool. Disc Golf Show says that's crazy cool. Thank you. At least there's 2 of us that think so. But today, like I was saying, we're going to get back into the book stories. And let me put up here a little bit about the author and the book, because that's what it's about, right? We're live streaming some first chapter reads here. Now, on Instagram, you're not going to get all the stuff, so I'll just read it out to you. How's that sound? And I will put the link to Sarah Tollok's website here in the chat for you if you want to check out her website, which is also, coincidentally, maybe not, where you can pick up a copy of the book if you enjoy what you hear today. And you can read it for yourself and just imagine all of the stumbles and decisions that we're going to have to make here in a couple of minutes in there as you're reading it, as you do. Anyway, Sarah Tollok lives in the beautiful Shenandoah Valley of Virginia with her husband and 2 sons. Her work can be found in anthologies with Improbable Press, Alan Squire Publishing, and Clandestine Press, as well as numerous online literary journals. Bookstories, the author's love letter to the world of books, debuted in 2024 with Balance of 7. You can find out more about her work and check out her reading blog at sarahtollok.com. So that link is down there for you. If you're in YouTube and if you're in Twitch, that'll be there for you. And then I just pasted her website for you there in Instagram. So check that out. A little bit about the book. There's an excerpt that's a little bit longer. I encourage you to check that out on our website, but here's the gist of it. In 1960, junior editor Dottie Barber is up to her elbows in the slush pile of a New York publishing house. All of Dottie's friends and colleagues know her to be a book lover through and through, but what they don't know is that she has a special intuitive ability to understand pieces of a writer's life just by reading their words. And it goes on. She might have some special powers when it comes to figuring out what a writer's about just by reading their words. But she comes across an author, somebody that submits their stuff to the paper that she works at, the publishing house she works at, and she finds that she can't pick up these little things that she's been able to for everything else she's ever read, but not this one in particular. And then the mystery, I think, resumes, 60 years later or something? Like, it kind of, I think, does a little time jump in the story, but at least for our first chapter here, it's going to set this whole thing up for us. So I think you're going to enjoy it. I really enjoyed it the first time through. The writing here is spectacular. It was one of those reads, like going through it, that the characters were complex enough that it gave me enough of a challenge to try to come up with, okay, in one chapter, with the information that I have about these folks, what can I bring to them? Obviously, if you're doing the whole audiobook, you read the whole thing. That way you can kind of get a feel for these characters and actually what they're going to become. But I think we get a pretty good sense of who they are just right in the first chapter, which is good. And especially our main character, which is obviously the point of your introductory chapter, right? You definitely want to set them up strong. So the writing is spectacular. The characters are strong. The story is good. And the writing is complex enough that sometimes I found myself going, no. I think I should read the sentence this way. And I'm probably going to do that a lot tonight too, is, kind of as you read it out loud and reflect on it, you're like, no, that's not quite right. The inflection should be this way. And I think that's one of the things that a lot of people miss when they hear an audiobook, right? There's decisions that are made. The writer makes a decision and the narrator makes a decision. And honestly, the narrator's job is to fulfill whatever the author is trying to put across, right? Sometimes, though, that can be a guess. Like, I think the intention was this. And hopefully we get it right most of the time. If it's a critical scene, though, and I'm unsure, I'm just going to reach out to the author and ask, right? I mean, it is what it is. But for the most part, you're kind of taking the work in as a whole and you're making those decisions to kind of figure out and make the correct choices, right? On what the words are trying to convey. So this one is really good. And I think it provides a challenge in that, in how do I want to convey this the best? So it'll be fun. The only not fun part's going to be that booth is hot. It is hot here right now. My watch is wrong and it says 61 degrees. That's wrong. It's probably closer to 80. But so that booth is going to be cooking. So I might take water into the booth instead of, the diuretic. Might be a smart decision. I encourage you, too, to drink responsibly. One of my moderators, who I don't think is here right now, no, I don't see him in there, likes to turn my mess-ups into a drinking game, and you can partake as well. Exclamation point flub in the chat, and it'll put a little marker, and we'll keep track of how many times I mess up. I'm probably not going to do that when I'm in the booth and actually doing the recording. It's a little too much to keep track of, but if one of you wants to do it, great, go for it. It can be fun, and my moderator likes to take a drink every time that happens. Drink responsibly. I mess up a lot sometimes. We'll see how this evening goes. You can switch to water. Nobody will know. You know? What are you enjoying this evening? Are you having a drink, having some snacks, sitting back relaxing after maybe a long work day? It doesn't have to be whiskey for Whiskey Wednesday. It's just a suggestion. And I like alliteration, so Whiskey Wednesday. It's kind of catchy, right? Kind of catchy. Kind of like this music, Stream Beats by Harris Heller. I don't have to plug him, but I would say if you're streaming or you're looking for doing projects on YouTube, like some of the creative people that watch my channel do, Harris Heller, look him up, Stream Beats. He specifically made all the music that you're hearing right now on a playlist on pretty much every platform. I'm using Spotify, but they're all royalty free. And he specifically made them so that streamers and YouTubers can use that music without fear of getting copyright struck, right? And it's good stuff. He has stuff in like every genre. I don't have it limited, so we could even hear Christmas tunes esque. So, but for the most part, he's got, hi-fi, lo-fi, all that kind of stuff. So, yeah, it's good stuff. Check it out. Not sponsored or anything. I just really enjoy his music, and that's kind of been the backing track for us while we get stuff started. Okay, so what's going to happen here? The recording booth that I'm going to be live recording from is downstairs in my garage. It's going to take me a minute to get down there. So what I'm going to do is really quickly, I'm just going to throw you all on a quick Be Right Back screen with some music. I'll turn up the music so you have something to listen to while I'm literally walking down the stairs and getting into the booth and setting up the webcam, for you to see what we're doing in there, especially you on Instagram. You're definitely going to want that. I haven't figured out how to share the screen to Instagram in a way that would be beneficial. Like, I don't know how to display that. Like, so on YouTube and Twitch, if you're interested, I'll have like a little half screen of my recording software, so you can see kind of what it looks like, what environment I'm recording into, and like when I make mistakes, how I'm going back and replacing, and what that kind of looks like. I don't know. It's kind of nerd stuff, but I haven't really figured out a way to do that in a way that makes sense. But I'll brainstorm on it. There might be a better way. I don't know. Because I'm pretty sure if you're watching on Instagram, usually you're on your phone. If you turn it so that you're looking landscape, it's going to distort everything. It's not just going to flip it landscape. Everything's going to stay vertical, right? Or does it even change if you flip it on Instagram? If you're watching, I don't even know if it does. Yeah, I don't know if that would be... Nah, it would have to stay vertical, I think. Anyways, this doesn't matter. Just explaining to you why you're probably not going to see the screen. But if you're interested, you can always go to YouTube, youtube.com/@4, the number 4, FIFE, the number 6. And I'm live streaming on there as well if you kind of want to see what that looks like if you're interested. If not, hang around on Instagram and whatever else you're on, because this is what we're doing. Skull Show says nope. Oh, okay, so it doesn't change when you rotate it. Okay, good to know. Good to know. I could pull up the stream, I guess, on my phone and just look at it, but it's too much work. Too much work. I have whiskey to enjoy, right? So let us talk about going down those stairs, getting into that booth, and getting this shindiggle started, huh? Yes. Okay. Yeah. So I have that up there, and then literally, it's just going to be me.
My God, are you still talking?
I am still talking. But I promise we're going to go downstairs. One quick thing that I just thought about on Twitch, they like to do this thing where they do an ad break. So what I try to do, this is what I try to do. What I try to do is stop for the couple of minutes that the ad break is going on Twitch. And then when it's over, I'll come back and start narrating again. However, we should hear the Old Spice jingle, and that'll be our cue that an ad break is coming up. However, I've noticed in the recording booth, and I don't know if it's a product of me just getting going and I'm into it and I'm all in, but I haven't been able to hear the notification that we're going into an ad break. So, with that being said, I might miss those. So, I'm just saying, not that I would ever promote on Twitch to go to somewhere else other than Twitch, because they really wouldn't like that. But if you went to youtube.com/@456 for some reason, there's no ad breaks there. So, just saying. Or Instagram. But it's /justin.fife for Instagram Live. In this particular case. Although maybe I should try to get a 456. I don't know. Because I think you can link them. Can you link them? I don't know. Doesn't matter. I'm just taking my time drinking my whiskey. I'm stalling. That's what I'm doing. It's hot. Okay? It's hot. I'm sacrificing for you. All right, I'll stop whining about it. Let's get going. All right, I'm going to put you on just a brief be right back screen with a little bit of music. And then when you see me next, we'll be in the booth. See you there. And I just realized on Instagram it says starting. I got to change that to be right back, but it's not starting. We already started. You know that. Okay, I'll see you in a second. Here I go. I'm going to run downstairs. All right. A little bit of Inception there, probably. Screen within screen within screen. Hopefully, without... Okay, I think you should be able to hear me now. If you can't hear me, let me know. But we're about to get into Bookstories by Sarah Tollok. From this bad mamba jamba right here, look at that. Got my own personal copy. That's right, my own personal copy. And mine, and I don't know, maybe if you ordered it off the website, I got mine signed. I got it signed. It's my claim to fame. All right. Looks like there actually is an ad break here starting here soon, and I'm not hearing any audio. So, all right. Here's the deal. I'm not going to be able to hear when the ad breaks come up, so I'm sorry we can't stop because I'm definitely not going to notice. So I apologize. I'm going to keep reading through, but you know what? If you're liking what you're hearing and you don't want, to be interrupted, you can always go to Sarah's website and pick up a copy of the book yourself. That way you can read right through, no interruptions, other than those interruptions that life generally throws at you, right? All right, let's see here. Ad break ends in 10 seconds on Twitch, so we should be almost ready to go here in just a second. Let me pull this up. Where did it go? It disappeared. Let's open it again. Da-da-da. All right. Da-da-da. Hopefully I am coming through there on... yeah, it looks like... Oh, weird. Okay, hold on. It's all kinds of messed up. I'm glad I looked at that. Toss you down there, book. All right, why is that all weird? All right, we're going to do some on-screen editing. This will be fun, right? Even more behind the scenes, where you get inception of the further inception of... All right. This is the webcam, correct? No, that's the audio source webcam. I need the video source webcam. Here we go. Yep, that's it. Okay. Why is this all wonky? Whoa, it's like really big for some reason. All right. Live on stream, creating the stream. It's so meta. Yeah. All right, there we go. That's a little better. Now let me fix Instagram for you guys. Where is that source? There it is. I don't understand why it got huge. It went big mode. There we go. Is that a little better? Now you're not just like staring at my chest. As weird as that probably was for you, I apologize. That's weird. It's probably because I did last episode. If you go on youtube.com/@456, Corey Lanuski and I did kind of like a streaming with friends kind of deal, because he's also a streamer but an author. And actually he was the very first chapter that I read on 456. So it was kind of cool, like to kind of kick off this whole series again. I read his first chapter again, but then we kind of had an interview too. So you can kind of get his side of the story in terms of like writing and how that went and everything that goes into that. So it was kind of cool. All right. I think we're good. If we're not good, let me know. Let me pull that up again, actually, and just see if anybody's like, in the chats. Let me, what monitor is what monitor? All right. That monitor is that monitor. No. Everything's weird. Don't do that to me. Oh, what did that pull up for? I must have clicked on it by accident. I didn't mean to do that. All right, cool. So it looks like the streams are still up and functioning. We're going to switch on and get to going. Let me see here. Instagram looks like it's frozen, but it's probably not. Everything look good on Instagram. We'll see if anybody says anything, and then we'll jump into it. If it's down, I can just restart it. We'll see. We will see. Let me scroll down to our first chapter here while we're waiting. There we go. Make that a little bigger. Because as I get older, my eyes are going on me. I just got this cool little thing. So, technique, kind of maybe, for you. If you like to do the whole recording thing and you want to let everybody know in your family, hey, I'm recording, so don't come into the room that I'm in or make a lot of noise right outside the door. I got a little, it's like a light that says now live, right? Or, it can say anything. But it has a wireless chip so you can connect it to your Wi-Fi, which means you can turn it on and turn it off from your phone and let everybody know, hey, light's on, I'm in the booth. So I turned that on real quickly before I got in there. And for Father's Day, my wife got me a really cool gift. I'm going to lean to the side so you can see it right behind me. It's awesome. Look at this. Isn't that cool? That is super cool. This is 456 Studio. What do you know? Eh? All right. I guess everybody left me on Instagram. They're not going to let me know. So that's fine. That's fine. We'll sail without them. Hopefully it's going well. It looks like it's up on Twitch and doing its thing. I'm just... I am hoping that the audio is coming across for you, and it looks like it is. I'm getting an indication that you're getting something from it, and I'm hoping it's from the mic. Yes, it is. All right. Okay. Here we go. Let's get into it. Here we are. Let me close the door. You know what? No, I have water in here, so I have a little bit. Grab a drink of that. And we might take some periodic breaks because, as I said, it's warm in here. I'm already sweating. So might take a couple breaks. This is a fairly long first chapter of Bookstories by Sarah Tollok, and I hope you enjoy. Unfinished. New York City, 1960. I got one! Bobby's exclamation resulted in Turn's head. Cool. Sound test good. Let's record. Unfinished. New York City, 1960. I got one! Bobby's exclamation resulted in turned heads and several groans rising from the cramped rows of desks in the smoke-filled bullpen of Tandem Bike Publishing. Already don't like the first sentence. Say that again. I got one! Bobby's exclamation resulted in turned heads and several groans rising from the cramped rows of desks in the smoke-filled bullpen of Tandem Bike Publishing. Most of the junior editors went right back to work, thumbing through towering stacks of thick manila envelopes. Most of the junior editors went right back to work, thumbing through towering stacks of thick manila envelopes, trying to decipher whether they had a submission worth passing up the chain to the assistant editors. However, a few bowed heads shot up. Those editors dropped what they were doing and made a beeline for Bobby's desk. Dottie was the first to arrive. Of course she was. She'd known exactly what Bobby's announcement meant. Although her looks were unassuming, Dottie had a presence about her. She was highly focused and no-nonsense, especially when it came to books. Only those not scared off by her intensity knew Dottie also had a sensitive soul, relentless curiosity, and a razor-sharp sense of humor. "Is it them? Are you sure?" Dottie's cigarette nearly singed the paper as she reached for the slim stack in Bobby's hand. His mother-of-pearl cufflinks caught the light, capturing Dottie's attention. Bobby was always fully buttoned up, stylish and perfectly coiffed. Even on days it was unlikely he'd have to make an appearance in any of the wood-paneled executive offices upstairs. "Of course I'm sure, darling. Here, I'll trade you." Bobby exchanged the manuscript for her cig, only to dramatically gag after the first puff. "How do you smoke these things? Filters are ridiculous. It's the smoking equivalent of getting a hand job with a woolen sock. Still frowning, he tore off the lipstick-stained end of Dottie's L&M and sucked down half the tobacco in one long drag. "I thought you were quitting," remarked Ted, as he pulled his chair up next to Bobby's desk. Bobby smiled. "It's a special occasion. I finally got one." Gail, the last of the fan foursome, deposited herself on Ted's knee. Dottie gave the mismatched pair a quick smile before diving into the story. Gail was a transplant from a wealthy Connecticut clan. Her family had been rich longer than Ted's family had even been in the country. Her perfect patent leather shoes rubbed against Ted's pant legs, hand-hemmed by his baba. He smiled up at her with his chip-toothed grin, and she beamed back. Gail ran her red fingernails through Ted's shaggy brown hair, trying in vain to make it neater. "Just don't tell my mother you caught me smoking," Bobby quipped, taking another drag. "Your secret's safe with us," Ted assured him. "Now, catch us up. What's this one about?" "Sailors and boats," said Bobby, wagging his eyebrows and loosening his collar. "Shipyards and longshoremen," Dottie corrected, already turning to the second page. Gail began humming. "Ships ahoy!" Bobby joined in. "Shh, all of you! Shut it!" snapped Lorne, an editor one row over. "I'm trying to read here. You're all crazy to waste your time with the crap that guy sends in." "You have no vision, Lorne," Ted yelled. "Besides, we all know you hide torn-out pages from Playboy and the manuscripts when you get bored. Nothing wrong with a little Playboy, Lorne. Good articles. No need to hide it." "And the author could be a woman, Lorne," Gail added in a scolding tone. "We exist beyond the centerfolds of your girly magazines." Turning beet red, Lorne grumbled and closed the top drawer of his desk, giving the four a guilty sidelong glance. After this, they all fell silent as Dottie read. Turning to page 4, she sighed and shook her head. "The part with the imagery of the coiled rope?" Bobby asked. "Yeah," she responded in a whisper. The writing... Weird intake of breath. Responded in a whisper. The writing was so brilliant, it required reverent silence. Reading this author's work made Dottie feel as if she were standing near the huge bank of votive candles at St. Pat's Cathedral, surrounded by soft, warm illumination. Each flame was an intention all its own, but together they created something beautiful, a whole greater than the sum of its parts, enough to warm someone looking for more. Enough to warm someone looking for more than physical warmth on a cold, lonely day. Dottie flipped through the pages faster and exponentially faster. Dottie flipped through the pages faster and exponentially faster, like gravity tumbling young... I gave out on gravity. Gravity. Day. Dottie flipped through the pages faster and exponentially faster, like gravity tumbling young Alice down the rabbit hole. Yet, like always, just when she was thoroughly lost in the story, she reached the end of a page, and there was no more. Her descent into Wonderland abruptly halted, and she was left hanging. I should tie those together a little bit. The page broke, but I don't think the... No, the paragraph did break. Okay, let's try it again, though. And there was no more. Her descent into Wonderland abruptly halted, and she was left hanging, suspended among the teacups and pocket watch gears, unable to set even one silk-slippered foot into the Mad Hatter's party or anywhere else. The story... I don't like how I added that. Unable... Watch gears. Unable to set even one silk-slippered foot onto the Mad Hatter's party or anywhere else. Into, not onto. Her descent into Wonderland abruptly halted, and she was left hanging, suspended among the teacups and pocket watch gears, unable to... Pocket watch gears. Unable to set even one silk-slippered foot into the Mad Hatter's party or anywhere else. and pocket watch gears, unable to set even one silk-slippered foot into the Mad Hatter's party or anywhere else. Okay. Where else? The story didn't have an ending. None of them ever did. Dottie handed the manuscript off to Gail and Ted, then slumped onto the corner of Bobby's desk. The story, like the author's other submissions, was incredibly real and immersive. Dottie felt like she could hear the water of the Hudson lapping against the pilings below the dock and the smell of... Drug that out a little too far. Dottie felt like... Immersive. Dottie felt like she could... I don't like that. Immersive. Dottie felt like she could hear the water of the Hudson lapping against the pilings below the dock and the smell of the oily smoke from the ship's engines. But okay, I thought I might have heard a tummy rumble, but I didn't. I was hearing stuff. Like last night when I was recording, which announcement to come soon on the book that I'm currently working on. Nothing but tummy rumbles. Like, I don't know what was up. It was like my body was like, you know what? You should digest food now. It's like, for like an hour, it's just me like trying to time in between, like, pause, rumble, rumble, pause, rumble, rumble, mess up line. Darn it, redo it again, rumble, rumble. Ah! Finally just took like a break for like 15 minutes, like, okay, just settle down. Engines. Oily smoke from the ship's engines. Ship engines. Smell of the oily smoke from the ship's engines. It's not plural. And the smell of the... And smell the oily, not even the smell. I messed that up completely. Glad I cut that. Lapping against the pilings below the dock. So that's a really good point. So when you're narrating stuff, you've probably seen, although you're probably not following along with the text, but if you were, you would have noticed I switched the placement of the there. It's weird. Your brain does weird stuff. Like it goes, no, it should be this way. And then it just does it. And that's what you read. So it's very important after you're done to go back through and proof it. I do work with an editor now because it's way more efficient use of my time, I found, to just record the next story and have somebody else do the proofing and the editing. So I'll do an initial proofing pass. And I might use something like a positron that I can scan text in and then put in my audio file, and it'll try to match the two for me. And it does a pretty good job of it. And it'll find like obvious mistakes. So I try to do that first with every chapter. Then I send it to the editor, and if they catch anything, they'll send it to me and I'll do pickups from there. So I try to do a once pass to catch like little stuff like that. But even those, sometimes even when I'm reading through again, I still don't catch it. But the editor will, because they're disconnected from the work, right? It's not them. They're listening to somebody else. It's much easier to catch somebody else's mistakes than your own mistakes. There's a lot of things like that in life, and this is one of them. So this is this weird phenomenon. Everybody does it. It's a natural thing, but it's just weird that your brain's like, no, it says this, when it clearly doesn't. Add words, take away words, put them in different orders. Let me check in on chat here real quick, just to see if anybody said anything. Since I'm taking a little break, let me open up the booth. All right, it looks like we're pretty clear there. Nobody has any questions, which is good. Quick reminder too, I put in some little things you can spend the channel points on in Twitch if you want to spend it. I'm crossing my fingers that nobody actually redeems one of those right now, because some of that stuff is upstairs. I didn't really think about that when I made them, so mental note for me later if I'm watching this VOD, which I'm not going to be watching this VOD. It's weird watching yourself, right? Unless you're like editing a video or something, but which I might do. Cut out all the like breaks and fluff in between, and then put like a more polished version on YouTube or something. Be kind of cool, right? I don't know, or send little snippets to maybe Sarah, and she can use some of it for like Instagram video clips or something. I don't know why she wouldn't use that, but ideas floating around, right? I just took a couple of marketing courses, and I've got these like marketing ideas just floating around in my head now. So it's just like weird stuff, like, oh yeah, I could do that, and then I think about it again. I'm like, that'd be weird. Nobody wants to see that. All right, anyways, let's get back to it. Let's get back to it, shall we? Where did we leave off?
Smell of the oily
Right there.
smoke. Dottie felt like she...
Okay. Let's resume there from Dottie. Dottie, come on down. Here we go.
Immersive.
Dottie felt like she could hear the water of the Hudson lapping against the pilings below the dock and smell the oily smoke from the ship engines. But any sense of the author themselves?
Engines.
But any sense of the author themselves? Nothing. It was maddening. Wow, right? Bobby asked. Dottie nodded, then walked back to her desk to get a new cigarette. As she dug one out of the pack, she glanced down at the submission she'd been reading before Bobby sounded the alarm. The story was a romance set on some island in Alaska. The writer's cover letter spoke of how everything in Hawaiian had become a fad since the island's recent ratification as a state. She felt that Alaska, also having just officially joined the USA, was equally deserving of some love and attention. Dottie thought the writer had a point. The Alaska angle could be a good look. The Alaska angle could be a good hook, and what she'd read of the story so far was a fun romp in the Alaskan wilderness with a GI and a local tomboy of a gal. The earnestness of the author's words showed how serious she was about wanting others to fall in love with Alaska as she had. Compared to what Dottie had just read, though, the Alaskan romance felt flat. I think I said romance kind of weird. The Alaskan romance felt flat. It's not as weird as I thought it was. Flat. But at least it would have an ending, and at least she knew something about the author. Even without the benefit of the cover letter, Dottie was always able to pick up an understanding of a writer as she read their work. Every time Dottie read, she got a brief glimpse. Every time Dottie read, she got brief glimpses into the mind of the author. It had always been that way, even when she was a little girl. She'd once thought everyone felt and knew such things, and only as she got older had she slowly realized they didn't. Immersed in a story, Dottie could tell the author's gender, even when the given name was just a first initial. She could tell whether they were writing from their own experience, they were inspired by reading about something, or they were making everything up for the sheer love of it. She could even tell how the author felt when they were putting pen to paper. The knowledge just came to her, a mist of understanding that crept in from the edges of the page as she took in the story. Sometimes insight rolled in quietly, becoming more detailed the further she read. Other times, the flashes came fast and intensely, lightning from a thunderstorm that blew in on an otherwise sunny day. As a young girl, Dottie had learned that some of the saddest people wrote the funniest prose. Those who were the most fearful of the world wrote the bravest characters, and those who were lonely wrote about family and love like no one else. Fumbling to light a cigarette, Dottie looked over at her friends as they passed the pages of the new story around. Watching the three of them, she tried to grasp is the word. Watching the three of them, she tried to grasp why and how the author of the unfinished stories was different from every other writer's whose work she'd read. She took a long drag from her cigarette, held it between her pursed lips, and straightened the pages of the Alaskan story that she'd thrown aside when she'd run to answer Bobby's call. I drop out on answer. Kind of felt like I wouldn't answer, and straightened the pages of the Alaskan story that she'd thrown aside when she'd run to answer Bobby's. I did. And straightened the pages of the Alaskan story that she'd thrown aside when she'd run to answer Bobby's call. Held it between her pursed lips and straightened the pages of the Alaskan story that she'd thrown aside when she'd run to answer Bobby's call. All right, I'm going to take this out. because I can't hear anyways, which is unfortunate. I don't know why that's not working. I tested it earlier today, and I could hear the streaming computer just fine, and now I can't, which is very disappointing. So I'm going to have to figure out a more permanent way to do it. I don't know, maybe I get maybe I can do like some kind of like speaker situation in here or something. I don't know. Anyways. When she between her pursed lips and straightened the pages. No, stop. Zoom in. There we go. Okay. She'd run to answer Bobby's call, I think is where we left off. To answer Bobby's call. Sorry, everybody. If you're on Instagram, hope I didn't make you sick there. Like, whoa. Everything's bouncing. All right. Bobby's call. It was easier to fall back into the swirling eddy of details she'd picked up about the young romance author than try in vain to decipher anything about the mysterious writer. The Alaskan author was a transplant. The Alaskan author was a young transplant, probably in her late teens. Dottie could feel the younger woman's appreciation for Alaska, not as a first home, but as an adopted homeland, and she intuited that the girl was from a military family. The bits about the GI rang true, and were written with ease and confidence, handled in a way no amount of research alone could have produced. As for her age, Dottie could feel the girl's youth in her movements of self-consciousness around the romance, with which she had very little personal experience. Oh, and the author used to be... and the author was used to being an outsider of sorts, in a way that extended beyond being a military kid. Dottie couldn't put a finger on exactly how, but she felt she would be able to by the end of the story. Dottie Dottie couldn't put a finger on exactly how, but she felt she would be able to by the end of the story. Yet, when it came to the writer who never finished a story, Dottie could barely pick up anything about them. She didn't know their gender, their emotional state as they wrote, or anything else. Not even the slightest, and it was smallest. Not even the smallest detail presented itself to her when she read the author's words. Weird breath. Not anything else. Not even the smallest detail presented itself to her when she read the author's words. She wasn't used to having to guess at things. Dottie and her three pals in the editorial pool, all fans of the mysterious author, guessed that the writer was a fellow New Yorker. The postmarks on the submissions were from all over the city, and almost all the stories were based somewhere in the 5 boroughs. Not only that, but the detail in each story spoke to someone who knew the local... locations. It's like a split word. And I was not reading ahead very effectively. Not only that, but the detail in each story spoke to someone who knew the locations intimately. The author was also probably well educated, or at the very least, well read, because the quality of the writing was remarkable. If it hadn't been, the unfinished short stories is a mouth chop, that one, yep. There's a flub, right, if you're keeping track. Remarkable. If it hadn't been, the unfinished short stories would have been quickly tossed aside to the gals who sent the courtesy rejection letters. Yet, even that would have been problematic. The stories never bore a return address. They were also never signed. Even if anyone at Tandem Bike had wanted to publish the stories, they had no way of getting in touch with the author. Who sends something they wrote to a publishing house with no hope of getting an acceptance letter and contract in return? Probably the same type of writer who never finished a damn story. And they never wrote the same kind of story twice. There was never a common theme between the stories beyond the locations always being in or around New York. One story followed Maria, a young mother from Argentina who ran a little grocery store with her husband, but secretly harboring dreams of being an inventor. Every week, she would hug her kid, lug, although I'm sure she hugged them too. Every week, inventor. Every week, she would lug her kids to the library Library? Inventor. Every week, she would lug her kids to the library via public transportation so she could read periodicals about engineering and mechanics and check out vehicle manuals. She tinkered with the stories. She I got a fire, Mr. Here we go. Let's try this again, shall we? Manuals. I fall out of that word. And check out vehicle manuals. Yeah, let me try that again. So she could read transportation. So she could read periodicals about engineering and mechanics and check out vehicle manuals. She tinkered with their store's transportation so she could read periodicals about engineering and mechanics and check out vehicle manuals. She tinkered with their store's delivery truck and with the appliances at home, stretching out her thoughts about how she could make them work better. In Maria's imagination, she built a child from metal, wires, and small hydraulics that could run and play like the children of her own flesh. That particular story cut off right as the young mother was picking her way through the aisles of a hardware store, with no good excuse for being there, save for dreaming. Another piece followed Albert, an older man in love with his young milkman, Jerry. He thought about Jerry all the time and tried to find ways to make his life easier. Albert gave Jerry gifts he would pass off as casual, like quality long johns for cold mornings that he said were a birthday gift that didn't fit, or the box of chocolates he claimed were from a client but that he didn't care for because they had peanuts, knowing full well that Jerry had a fondness for peanuts. When Jerry mentioned the diner he liked to go to on payday for the Friday night pot roast, Albert worked up the courage to go, planning to pass it off as a chance meeting. If the younger man invited Albert to sit with him, Albert would insist on picking up the tab. It would almost feel like a date, but Albert never went to the diner. Into. The word is into. She wrote into for a reason. Say it. Feel like a date. But Albert never went into the diner. He only stood across the street and looked through the window, through which he watched Jerry blush and respectfully flirt with a waitress. After standing on the street for an indefinite amount of time, Albert went home. He saw Jerry the following Monday morning, and they talked about the ball game, their familiar routine. When Jerry got back in his truck and Albert walked to the corner to catch the bus to work, Then Jerry got back in his truck and Albert walked to the corner to catch the bus to work, still thinking about Jerry. That was where the story ended, with no indication of whether the two ever had that pot roast date. Even if the story had been finished, no one would ever publish a one-sided love story about two men. It didn't matter that it was one of the best men. It didn't matter that it was one of the best love stories Dottie had ever read. So many unfinished stories. Yet Dottie still couldn't sense anything about the author who wrote them all. Her frustrated fascination with the mysterious author made Dottie the obvious choice to be the keeper of the stories. They resided in a thick brown folder, tied up with string, which she kept in the bottom drawer of her desk. Well, all except the story about Albert and his milkman. Bobby held on to that one. Over a few too many drinks one night, he'd told her how it made him cry, with hope. Knowing someone out there can understand what it's like, and can write about it that beautifully. Makes me feel like someday it'll be okay. It'll be okay for the Alberts of the world, and for me too. All the unfinished stories were so real and alive. They seemed to have lives of their own. The new one about the longshoreman was no different. Shaking her head, Dottie snuffed out her cigarette and returned to her friends, who had just finished making plans to meet up after work at a local burger and beer dive. "Bring the whole folder, Dottie," Ted exclaimed with grandiosity. "Tonight, we are going to figure this mystery out once and for all." He nearly spilled Gale from his lap in his excitement, and she swatted his arm. Smiling at her friend's antics, Dottie told them she'd be there, folder in hand. Then she returned to work. That evening, before heading out to meet her friends for dinner, Dottie stopped at home to change out her... That evening, before heading out to meet her friends for dinner, Dottie stopped at home to change out of her work clothes. She deftly dodged her father's newspaper-shaking tirade about the U.S. needing to be less worried about what Russia was doing in space and more worried about what it was doing in Cuba. However, Dottie found it harder to dance around her mother's not-so-subtle attempt to set her up on a lunch date with the son of a woman from her temple's ladies' auxiliary. "Think about it, Dorothy," her mother was yelling as Dottie closed the door between them. "He's a med student at NYU." Although Dottie's mother was bent on finding her only daughter a husband, it was the last thing on Dottie's mind. She could only think about the unfinished stories. She could only think about the unfinished stories. Sometimes the pages she carried tucked under her arm in a manila envelope seemed more real to her than real life. As Dottie's sensible wedge heels clicked on the subway steps, thoughts of the young mother, Maria, marched through her mind. Ted theorized that Maria's tale was influenced by science fiction, possibly even The Twilight Zone. But to Dottie, the robot details were not the focus of the story. The core of the piece was Maria's incredible mind and her dreams. As she swayed to the rhythm of the train with her fellow passengers, Dottie thought of another incredible mind, that of the unknown author. To write the way that they did, they had to be not only brilliant, but also compassionate and empathetic. They had to be not only brilliant, but also compassionate and empathetic. How else could they have created so many diverse characters and have the reader feel like they knew the working? How else could they have created so many diverse characters and have the reader feel like they knew the workings of each of their hearts? Let's try that again, shall we? And empathetic. How else could they have created so many diverse characters and have the reader feel like they knew the workings of each of their hearts? Their hearts. See how I said that? It's like I know it says their hearts, but I don't want to say their hearts because I'm like, it doesn't say their hearts, but it says their hearts. And have the reader... Let's try it again from the top, shall we? And empathetic. How else could they have created so many diverse characters and have the reader feel like they knew the workings of each of their hearts? How else could they have captured Albert's unselfish love for Jerry and the expansive longing he kept neatly buttoned up and tucked away day in and day out? Who else could have envisioned a sailor, anchored by his responsibilities, who wanted to run away on a freighter and never step foot on land again? The stories, especially the characters within them, were so real to Dottie. She felt that if she were ever to meet them, it would be like resuming a conversation with an old friend after spending time apart. Dottie was so wrapped up in her thoughts that she missed her subway stop. Getting off at the next, she walked the few extra blocks, cursing her lack of attention the whole way. She was going to be late meeting her pals. As it turned out, though, her worry was for nothing. Ted arrived half. Ted arrived half. As it turned out, pals. As it turned out, though, her worry was for nothing. Ted arrived half. I'm like, it's like a PTSD moment. Like, I messed it up, so I'm gonna mess it up again. Pals. As it turned out, though, her worry was for nothing. Ted arrived a half hour later than she did, dropping into their usual corner booth and wedging himself in next to Gail. I had to stop at 3 different newsstands to find a decent street map of the city. It's a joke on the last word. Let's do that again. Gail. I had to stop at 3 different newsstands to find a decent street map of the city. Ted was quick to order himself a burger and fries, eager to spread out the map and begin solving their mystery. They had all... Oh, I had a burp. And it tasted like Maker's Mark 46. Available now at your local liquor store. Not sponsored. Don't sue me. Begin solving their mystery. They all had to pick up their plates and glasses. They all had to pick up their plates and glasses to make room for it, and Gail grabbed the monogrammed hanky out of her handbag so she could wipe away the circles of condensation left behind by cold beers. The map wasn't all Ted had brought with him either. He retrieved a handful of colored drafting... He retrieved... Not with him either. He retrieved a handful of colored drafting pencils, a ruler, and a protractor from his deep pockets and dumped them on the table. They spent the next hour in uncharacteristic solemnity. They spent the next hour in uncharacteristic on the table. They spent the next hour in on the table. They spent the next hour in uncharacteristic solemnity, poring over the stories and marking up the map with any locations that were mentioned. A napkin became the Jersey Shore. Jersey Shore. I can't speak now. Drink responsibly. Drink responsibly. Okay. I think we missed the ad break again, so sorry. A napkin. Okay, a napkin. There we go. Were mentioned. A napkin became the Jersey Shore, where one story took place and another became the Pocono Mountains. I know what that is. I don't know why that gave me pause. That were mentioned. A napkin became the Jersey Shore, where one story took place, and another became the Pocono Mountains in Pennsylvania, the setting of a story about a couple on a train. By the end of the evening, all of the 4 friends had to show on a train. By the end of the evening, all the 4 friends had to show for their work was a map covered in dots, a bunch of empty beer glasses, and 2 pitchers with foam dissolving at the bottom. Undeterred, they gave up on trying to make sense of the map and fell into a conversation they had. Undeterred. At the bottom. Undeterred, they gave up on trying to make sense of the map and fell into a conversation they had had many times over already. Bobby had his arm around Dottie, absent-mindedly playing with her curls, and Dottie leaned into him, listening to the reverberation of his voice in his chest. I think I said that weird. With her curls, and Dottie leaned into him, listening to the reverberation of his voice in his... Yeah, I got all sloppy with it. Bobby had his arm around Dottie, absent-mindedly playing with her curls, and Dottie leaned into him, listening to the reverberation of it. Bobby had his arm around Dottie, absent-mindedly playing with her curls, and Dottie leaned into him, listening to the reverberation of his voice in his chest. I swear, those pages smell like shrimp fried rice sometimes when they first come out of the envelope. Dottie, Gail, and Ted each lifted pages to their noses and took a long whiff. Bobby dissolved into giggles. I just got 3 grown adults to sniff paper. That earned him a few crumpled napkins and an empty cigarette pack flying at his head. When Ted and Gail settled back on the other side of the table, Dottie nestled against Bobby's chest again. Chest again? He has a chest, y'all. When Ted and Gail settled back on the other side of the table, Dottie nestled against Bobby's chest again. Gail restarted the conversation. I still think it's intellectual, trying to make a point about the nature of fiction. Trying to say something about the structure of narrative or about the expectation of the masses. She shrugged. Stein talked about how writing should move forward, a continuous present in a composition as explanation. Maybe the lack of conclusions is the author's take on Stein's nonlinear style. Well, we didn't make it through the night without... Oh, I see what he's saying. Got it. She shrugged. Stein talked about how writing should move forward, a continuous present in a composition as explanation. Maybe the lack of... That was in a reference. Continuous present. I borked that up. Let's just start it over. Stein. She shrugged. Stein talked about how writing should move forward, a continuous present in composition as explanation. Maybe the lack of conclusions is the author's take on Stein's nonlinear style. Well, we didn't make it through a night without Gail quoting good old Gertrude again, Bobby teased. I feel you're overthinking it and getting way too technical there, Vassar College. After a moment, when no one said anything else, he added, I bet it's someone normal, like a quiet older lady who lacks confidence and knowledge of publishing, and she just wants someone to read her work. I mean, off the top of my head, I can think of references in the stories to crocheting, embroidery, a fondness for cats, and tips on how to mend baby clothes, old lady things. Gail tapped a finger on the table. That's narrow-minded of you, Bobby. In my hometown, Daddy was friends with a local judge, and that man and all his brothers knew how to embroider. Their mother taught them how. He worked on recreation of some... Recreation, not recreation. Like recreation. Their mother taught them how. He worked on a recreation of some famous Flemish tapes. That is rough, okay. Taught them how. He worked on a recreation of some famous Flemish tapestry for over 15 years. I guess I still stumbled on it. He worked on a recreation of some famous Flemish tapestry. Like tapestry, that's the word, right? Them how. He worked on a He worked on a recreation of some famous Flemish tapestry for over 15 years. Now, Ted said, adopting a placating tone. I think Bobby is onto something with the regular person angle. Maybe the author is some high school gym teacher who coaches Little League on the weekends and doesn't know how to properly tie a tie, but reads a lot and writes in his spare time. Or maybe it's not PE. Maybe he's a science teacher. I mean, there were references to moon phases and some chemical reactions, and went beyond common knowledge, and it was all correct, so... He shrugged. Well, if you know enough about those science-y topics, then it's somewhat common knowledge. Let's try that again, as my voice fails me. Well, if... She's a little bit more sarcastic, I think. Shrugged. Well, if you know enough about those sciencey topics, then it's somewhat common knowledge. Gail rolled her eyes. That means someone who wouldn't have to be a science teacher to know... What? I messed that up. Gail rolled her eyes. Zoom in. Boop. Rolled her eyes. That means someone wouldn't have to be a science teacher to know. Or maybe... Oh! I don't like the pause there.
rolled her eyes.
Or, oh wait, hold on.
Rolled her eyes.
That means someone wouldn't have to be a science teacher to know. Or maybe, oh, she grabbed Ted's necktie, long since untied and hanging loose around his collar. We all know you can't tie a tie to save your life, and that your mother has to do it for you. Maybe it's been you all along. The mock seriousness of the accusation held for a moment. Then they both broke into smiles and gave each other a comically loud kiss. For that matter, Dottie chimed in after lighting another smoke, it could be any one of us. Then the author would sit back and watch the others respond to their work in the office. She took a long drag. On second thought, nah, none of you morons could write like that. Her declaration set off a round of laughter and well-meaning jabs, but in the end, the other three kept bouncing around more ideas. Her declaration set off a round of laughter and well-meaning jabs, but in the end, the other three kept bouncing around more ideas. Beatnik, who's trying to make a point about being anti-establishment, but is really just lazy about fishing. Anti-establishment, but is really lazy about fishing stories. That's good one, Justin. Finishing stories, dude. The heat's getting to me. Beatnik. Fishing stories, because that's where it's at. All right, here we go. Beatnik, who's trying to make a point about being anti-establishment, but is really just lazy about finishing stories and is not up to living. But anti-establishment, but is really just lazy about finishing stories and is not living up, dude. Anti-establishment, but is really just lazy about finishing stories and is not living up to his potential. Buddhist monk who doesn't feel endings are important because, impermanence and all that. A veteran with a plate in his head and no long-term memory. A hunchback. Seriously? A hunchback? Like from Notre Dame? No, like from the Bronx. And it doesn't have to be an actual hunchback, maybe just a bad goiter. Dottie smiled and chuckled and nodded along as her cigarette burned down. None of her friends' guesses rang true for her. None of them felt right. She kept hoping that if they ran through enough scenarios, one would reverberate with something she had picked up from the stories. Something just too long of a pause. She kept hoping that if they ran through enough scenarios, one would reverberate with something she had picked up from the stories, something just beyond her grasp of awareness, a piece of the puzzle that would allow a portion of the fog to clear around the unknown author of unfinished stories. Now, that needs to run together better. One would reverberate with none of them felt right. Right. She kept hoping that if they ran through enough scenarios, one would reverberate with something she had picked up from the stories, something just beyond her grasp of awareness, a piece of the puzzle that would allow a portion of the fog to clear around from the unknown author of unfinished stories. To clear around. Yeah, that's how it needs to go. Something just a piece of the awareness, a piece of the puzzle that would allow a portion of the fog to clear around the unknown author of unfinished stories. While her coworkers joked and tossed around ideas, Dottie looked at the map. She squinted and crossed her eyes, hoping a pattern would jump out at her. None did. There were little clusters of dots here and there in the areas where the stories took place, but they were ultimately just blank signposts pointing nowhere. It was as if the writer spent time visiting each place, but only just enough to be able to write about it accurately. Dottie sat up straight in the booth. He's been to all these places. Let's try that again there, home skillet. He's been to... Dottie sat straight... Dottie sat up straight in the booth. He's been to all these places. The words came out louder than she had planned, and the 3 sets of eyes landed on her. Or maybe she? Gale added, breaking the silence left behind by Dottie's declaration. Shh, I'm thinking. Dottie let her hands hover over the map, like a phony psychic trying to get a reading from the dead spouse's favorite t-shirt. Shirt, not t-shirt. Dottie let her hands hover over the map like a phony psychic trying to get a reading from a dead spouse's favorite shirt. Whoever wrote these stories had to have visited these locations. They wrote the settings with too much accuracy not to have seen them for themselves. She paused, looking around the circle of her friends. Why are we being so passive? Why don't we go find them? Why don't we let them know we love their stories? Why don't we invite them to come visit us? Because we don't know their address, remember? Ted twirled his fingers in the vicinity of his right ear. But we know where they've been, and they may go back again. We can put up posters in all these places. Dottie's tone rose with excitement. We can even take out an ad in the classifieds, say we want to meet them. That's actually not a bad idea, Bobby said, matching Dottie's No, he didn't. That's actually not a bad idea, Bobby said, matching Dottie's surge of energy. Reading the newspaper was mentioned more than a few times in the stories. It's a small detail, but could indicate that it's a habit of the authors. Which one was mentioned the most? The Times, the Tribune, or the Post? I don't like how I phrased that. Which one was mentioned by the authors? Which one was mentioned the most? The Times, the Tribune, or the Post? Gale and Ted looked at each other, then flipped through the stories. The Tribune was the winner. The call to take real action sobered the foursome up right quick. Turning over the map, they started to compose a classified ad in the margins. After that, they worked on wording the flyer and figuring out who at work they could call in favors with to run off a bunch of mimeographed copies. Mimeographed copies. Who at work they could call in favors with to run off a bunch of mimeographed copies. I took a weird, catch breath. They worked on wording the flyer. After that, okay, let's do it from there. Margins. After that, they worked on wording the flyer and figuring out who at work they could call in favors with to run off a bunch of mimeographed copies. A few days later, the 4 young editors set out across the city to different locations, posting the flyers on telephone poles and store windows and specific places mentioned in the stories. Gale and Ted made a day trip to the Jersey Shore to put a few out on the boardwalk. Dottie clutched her sack of flyers to her chest as she rode the trains and buses. In between stops, she read bits of the stories, trying to find clues about where exactly she put up the signs. Where exactly she should. I missed a whole word. Trying to find of the stories, trying to find clues about where exactly she should put up the signs. The writer signs. Did the writer describe a certain fountain in the park? Did they mention a newsstand near Times Square? It was as she traveled and read that Dottie finally felt a little something. A bare flicker of the author brushed against her consciousness, as if her traveling and seeking echoed their own. Her traveling. I'm like, what? I think it's time for a break. I'm getting all reading weird stuff. Let's check in the chat real quick. And I think there's going to be an ad break on Twitch here in a second. Anyways, so might as well check in. Can see but can't hear. Oh no. So you can't hear at all? That's not good. Oh, what's messed up? What got messed up? What got messed up? You should be able to hear. Let me see. Da-da-da-da-da-da. Audio. Output capture? Well, it should on... Hold on, let me see here. Let me see. Is there a way? Well, it should come through the desktop audio if it's working. So let me see here. Let's do this. Let's do some live troubleshooting. All right. Oh, that's not good. Yeah, for some reason it's not working on Instagram. So nobody can hear. That's great. Well, let me see here. So you should be hearing everything everybody else can hear. Which, does that mean nobody can hear anything on the others? Let's test that, shall we? So let's see here. Let's go to Twitch. Let's look at Twitch and see if Twitch is coming through on desktop audio when I unmute. On desktop audio when I unmute. Yeah, Twitch looks like it's working. Okay. They should all be grabbing from the same source. Why is all of a sudden Instagram not wanting to work? I wonder if... Ooh, I wonder. Well, there you go. I wonder if now you can hear it on Instagram. That would be probably why. That is unfortunate. I need to check that. Okay, food for thought. So there's probably nobody on Instagram that can actually hear it. That's... So... Since I've been doing these, nobody's been able to hear it? That's unfortunate. All right, well, let's see. Let's see if we fixed it now. So the desktop audio should jump, theoretically, when I unmute. Well, that's just borked all the way around, huh? Let me see. Let me refresh this. Hey, congratulations. Page just started at a new thing at Penguin. All right, why didn't it go back to me? Go back to me. Okay. Now let's... That's just forked all the way around, huh? Let me see. Let me refresh this. Hey, congratulations. Okay, now you guys are hearing me? I'm guessing? I'm the only one in here. Okay. I think it's working. Does it look like... Let me test that one more time. Desktop audio should jump. No. Okay. I think it's working. Yeah. Yeah, okay, it was working. Okay. Okay. All right. Weird troubleshooting moment, but, break time well spent, right? Technology. I wonder if... You know what? Maybe I'll do that. I could set up is I have a spare, like one of those like little extra like display monitors. So maybe I set up the display monitor because I think there's a headphone output. I'm going to set the headphone output to the little monitor on Instagram, and maybe I can triple screen them all. That way I can kind of monitor and make sure the sound's working. Like when I first get down here into the booth, to make sure that that doesn't happen again. Because I think it's working now. So let me while I'm on a roll here, let's see, to the little monitor. Yeah, that should be coming through. Okay, well, that's a bummer. So this whole time it was not working when I went to the booth. That's unfortunate. Well, it's okay. That's okay. Lesson learned. All right, let's check in here real quick on. Oops, nope, wrong one. I still want that, but I want to go to. We have Twitch. We need YouTube. Okay. Looks like we're good there. Nobody's got any questions. Awesome. Okay. Let's minimize this bad mamba jamber and get back to it. We're almost at the very end here of it, I believe, if I remember right. See, because we're up here right there at after on page 16. Almost. We're 23 pages. We're at 16 and 23. And really 22. It's like a little bit of 23. So hopefully you're all enjoying it as much as I am. I really like this story. I really, really like it the second time through too. Just picking up more little nuances throughout it as we go through. Kind of, the advantage of this being the second time through and not like a complete cold read. Although I did not have time to read through this today at all. I was doing the Audiobook Empire workshops today. So learned a ton from them, as I always do. All the workshops there are absolutely fantastic for narrators. Okay, let's go back to where are we at? Page 16. Let's seal in our hot box again. All right. Okay, make sure that we're for traveling and seeking echoed their own. Oh. No, we're not down that far. Echoed their own. There we go. Here we are. Yeah, we are. Echoed their own. After almost all her flyers were posted, she took out her copy of the Longshoreman story to read as she walked along the docks, letting the catcalls of the rough sailors slide off her without acknowledgement. It wasn't until she read the last part of the unfinished story that she realized her feet were sore from all her walking. Wanting to rest, Dottie stopped by a seafood shop, grabbed a bottle of Coke, and lit up a smoke on a bench facing the water. She sat in silence for a while. Then she pulled out the last of her flyers, a ripped one she hadn't wanted to post. To the unidentified writer who has been mailing stories to Tandem Bike Publishing, the junior editorial staff would like to get in contact with you. Some of the stories in question are titled The Mother of Invention and At the Docks. This is not an offer for publication, but has the potential to lead to a future partnership. The rest of the copy asked the author to call the switchboard and ask for Dottie or show up to the Tandem Bike Publishing offices at a set date and time, just under 2 weeks from now. We look forward to meeting you, the last line proclaimed with cautious optimism. Dottie's heart fluttered at the thought of someone actually walking into their lobby on the decided day. She was staring off into nothing, trying to picture the mystery author's face, when the small bell on the seafood beep, 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 beep. Tell me, Rumble. Computer freeze. Is my computer going to crash? Let's save real quick. Save frequently, save often. Here we go. Say frequently and often and frequently and now and every second. All right. She was staring. Day. She was staring off into nothing, trying to picture the mystery author's face, when the small bell on the seafood shop's door tinkled, oddly delicate among the heavy, heaving sounds of the rest of the docks. The thick beams beneath her feet seemed to demand that everything around them also have gravity and mass enough to keep them from floating away with the tide. I jammed it all together too fast. The thick beams beneath her feet seemed to demand that everything around them also have gravity and mass enough to keep them from floating away with the tide. Dottie froze, the bottle of soda just barely touching her bottom lip. That line about the thick beams, the dock. That line about the thick beams of the dock wasn't her own thought. It was from the story about the longshoreman. Fingers shaking, she pulled the manila envelope of stories from her handbag and flipped through to the page with the description. As she looked around, her fingers traced the words the unknown author had used to talk about this place. There was one shiny, red boat bobbing among the older, weathered... I saw the commas and my brain went list, and it's not. There was one place. There was one shiny red boat bobbing among the older weathered crafts. A coil of rope had been hung. It was hung there, but it's hanging. This place. There was one shiny red boat bobbing among the older weathered crafts. A coil of rope had been hanging from a pole for so long birds had built their nest in it. It was all so familiar. It was just how the author had written it. It was just as they had seen it. Dottie sprang up, turning around and round. Dottie sprang up, turning round and round. He was here! Her shout rang out too loud, and a nearby longshoreman glanced at her suspiciously. A pretty, well-dressed gal was meant to be admired and whistled at, not popping off with crazy exclamations in the middle of drinking her Coca-Cola. Dottie barely noticed the look she garnered, though. She was too intent on gathering her things and darting off to the nearest phone booth. Her hands shook as she attempted to load coins into the slot so she could call Gail. Her excitement kept her heel tapping against the metal floor as she waited for one of the other girls in the all-female apartment building to call her friend to the phone. Gail. Her excitement kept her heel tapping against the metal floor as she waited for one of the other girls in the all-female apartment building to call her friend to the phone. When Gail finally picked up, complaining that she had been in the middle of applying a box of red dye... When Gail finally picked up, complaining that she had been in the middle of applying a box of red dye to her hair, Dottie's words tumbled out in a rush. Gail first told her to slow down, then moved on to asking Dottie about other things she could check for. Is there a boat named Diana? And is there a little beagle running around? Little stray. Check for. Is there a boat named Diana? And is there a little stray beagle running around? Gail had an excellent memory for anything she read, and the details she quizzed Dottie on made Dottie start to doubt her conviction. Maybe she'd gotten ahead of herself when she saw a few details that matched the story, and she hadn't let herself see the differences. Worrying her lip, Dottie allowed herself to be talked down and then let Gail get back to her hair dye. But for good measure, she went back to the bench and put her last ripped flyer right on it. The paper strained. Right on it. The paper strained against the masking tape holding it down in the rising wind, and Dottie hoped it would stay in place long enough to be seen. Despite her doubts, Dottie couldn't entirely shake the feeling. She was right. The unknown author had been there. The feeling reminded her of when she was a little girl, realizing she got more from the stories than the other kids, or even her parents did. She thought about parents did. She thought everyone knew that the author of Winnie the Pooh wrote for his son, and that everyone could picture real trees as Christopher Robin and his friends tramped through the 100-acre wood. Over time, Dottie had learned that the feeling of knowing a location with a familiarity akin to knowing her own childhood backyard was not something other readers could sense. Now, at the docks, it was as if she were seeing everything through her own eyes and the author's eyes. Now, at the docks, it was as if she was seeing everything through her own eyes and the author's eyes simultaneously. It reminded her of a television program she had watched about how cartoon animators used transparent cells, laying one over another, to set a scene. Standing in front of the bench, one over another, to set a scene. Standing in front of the bench, Dottie opened her Standing in front of the bench, Dottie opened her Why do I want to say hired? It's hinged, dude. Come on. Standing in front of the bench, Dottie opened her hinged handbag and shuffled through the pages of the dock story again, careful that they didn't blow away in the process. She reread the passages describing this place, then closed her eyes and let herself see the space as it was then closed her eyes and let herself see the space as it was described in the story. When she opened her eyes, there was no beagle and no boat named Diana. However, she knew that the empty boat slip was where the Diana belonged, and when she spotted a well-worn box with a burlap lining tucked away from the wind, Dottie knew that was where a certain beagle curled up to sleep. She knew in the only way she could. On Monday morning, Dottie arrived late to the bullpen, an unheard-of occurrence. Bobby, Gail, and Ted were already bent over their newest rounds of manuscripts, weak coffee from the office urn in hand. Bobby, Gail, and Ted were already bent over their newest rounds of manuscripts, weak coffee from the office urn in hand. At the sound of her entrance, Bobby looked up and smiled, but his expression quickly turned to one of concern. Abandoning his reading, he followed Dottie to her desk. "Darling, you look ghastly. What were you up to this weekend? I'd suggest something salacious, but let's face it, you don't do anything salacious. At most, you skip Shabbat at your grandmother's house and go to a reading at a hole-in-the-wall bookshop and treat yourself to a piece of pie on the way home." "That's ridiculous," Dottie quipped, tugging off her she'd said that a little too. Dottie quipped. That's ridiculous," Dottie quipped, tugging off her hair scarf and inspecting herself in the compact mirror. "That's ridiculous." "That's ridiculous." "Ridiculous," Dottie quipped, tugging off her hair scarf and inspecting herself in her compact mirror. "You know I prefer cake over pie." Bobby was right, though. Despite her best efforts, Dottie's fatigue showed through. She sighed. She was tired, but it had been worth it. "I spent the weekend going all over the city, checking all the places where the stories take place. I'm nearly broke from all the subway tokens. My bus pass is frayed at the edges, and my shoes will need to be checked into the repair shop as soon as possible." "Repair shop? Shop as soon as possible. Into the repair shop as soon as... And my shoes will need to be checked into the repair shop." Yeah, is that weird? "My bus pass is frayed at the edges. Tokens. My bus pass is frayed at the edges, and my shoes will need to be checked into the repair shop as soon as possible." Bobby's eyes widened, taking her in with deeper concern. Why would you do that? We all took an area, remember? I mean, Ted can be flighty, but I got my flyers up in the park and the village, and you know you can count on Gail. I know. I came across the flyers you all put up, even Ted's. I wasn't worried about that. I was looking for them. I wasn't worried about that. I was looking for them. I was looking for them. Oh, weird. I wasn't worried about that. I was looking for them. Like glitched. About that. I was looking for them. About that. I was looking for them. Bobby caught one of her hands and held it. I don't follow, darling. Do you have a flask hiding in that bag of yours? If you do, I'd say lay off the sauce. I was looking for the people in the stories, Dottie protested. They aren't just characters that feel real. They are real. Some of them we won't be able to find, of course. I mean, there were no specifics given about the location of Albert's home or the diner with the good pot roast or where he worked. But I know I sat on the exact bench where the dock story took place. And Bobby? She gripped the hand holding hers. I found the grocery. I found her. I found Maria. She's as beautiful as he wrote her, and I found Maria. Maria. She's as beautiful as he wrote her, and just like he described. She's so quietly smart and inquisitive. I asked her if I could put up a flyer in the store, and she agreed. She didn't even ask about it. She said she couldn't really ask about it. She said she couldn't recall any customers who were writers. Bobby stood still for a moment. Did you tell her that you ask about it? Oops. Oh, no. Poop. She didn't even ask about it. What? Hold on. I asked her if I could put up a flyer in the store, and she agreed. She didn't even ask about it. I asked her. Inquisitive. I asked her if I could put up a flyer in the store, and she agreed. She even asked about it. She said. Inquisitive. I asked her if I could put up a flyer in the store, and she agreed. She even asked about it. She said she couldn't recall any customers who were writers. Bobby stood still for a moment. Did you tell her that he wrote about her? No. Pausing, Dottie released Bobby's hand, lit up her first cigarette of the day, and took a long drag. I told her we had someone sending us stories and we wanted to track them down, but I just told her that her store was used as a location in one of them. I mean, how do you tell someone that a stranger wrote about them, much less tell them that a stranger wrote about them in such an intimate, fond, and revealing way? I didn't think the author would want her to know that, you know? Well, it could have been a fictionalized version of her, Bobby said slowly. Well, it could have been a fictionalized version of her, Bobby said slowly. They could have just fancied the grocer's pretty smart wife. Bobby said slowly. They could have just fancied the grocer's pretty smart wife and made up the other stuff about her. Nope. Dottie grinned from ear to ear and counted. Nope. Dottie grinned from ear to ear and counted the details on her fingers as she fired them off. Maria had machine grease under her fingernails. There were kids running around the store, one of whom rode a blue tricycle in the alleyway where the old delivery truck was parked. And the piece de resistance? Dottie bounced on her heels, tapping so loud that several folks turned to see what the commotion was about. The latest copy of Popular Mechanics was tucked away under a stack of mail in the latest was about. The latest copy of Popular Mechanics was tucked away under a stack of mail on the store's counter. Bobby sat down hard and Bobby sat down hard in Dottie's chair, where he crossed his arms and nibbled on his thumbnail. So, our fiction writer may be more of a biographer of the everyman and every woman. Dottie, they might actually show up. This could work. Ted and Gail had been watching the exchange from their desks, but after seeing Dottie's bouncing and Bobby's dumbfounded but happy smile, they came over to share in the enthusiasm. Plans for the day of the possible meeting were made in a flurry, and excitement ran high. When the day arrived, they each dressed in their best professional attire. Ted was the most laid back of the group, but he asked Bobby to tie his tie for him. "I never quite get it right." The excitement had hit its peak, but anxiety stole in as the appointed time approached. Sitting at their desks, they pretended to read, even as they threw glances at the clock, counting the minutes as they ticked away. Between 4:10 and 4:15, they staggered, leaving their desks so as not to arouse suspicion, as if anyone cared what they did. Dottie took the stairs, walking slowly and breathing deliberately to calm herself. The four of them met in the lobby and spread out to watch for their guest. Ted and Gail stood by the door. Bobby sat with a newspaper by the big front windows, and Dottie leaned on the reception desk. She casually mentioned to Beth, the receptionist for the day, that a potential client might be coming in to talk with her, and that she'd already told the switchboard operator to route. She casually mentioned to Beth, the receptionist for the day, that a potential client might be coming in to talk with her, and that she'd already told the switchboard operators to route any calls she received around this time to reception. As they waited, 4:25 came. Then 4:30. A few folks The few folks who entered the reception area all asked for someone other than Dottie. Time ticked on. 4:35, then 4:45. A few straight tears fell from Dottie's eyes around 5 o'clock. At 5:15, Bobby put his arm around her. "They're not coming, kid." "They could just be late," Dottie protested. "There could be a traffic jam." "Okay," Bobby nodded, sympathy in his eyes. "We'll wait a bit longer." By then, the whole building was emptying out for the day. Waves of people flowed toward the street through We'll wait a bit longer. By then, the whole building was emptying out for the day. Waves of people flowed toward the street, though a few stragglers went against the tide and entered the lobby. Gail nudged Ted and shot Dottie a look when an unfamiliar woman came in around 5:25, glancing around but not approaching the reception desk. Dottie had a feeling the woman wasn't who they were waiting for, but she wanted to hold out hope that she was wrong. Yet she couldn't make herself go over. Gail was about to introduce herself and ask the woman if she was looking for someone in particular when Hal, from the fact-checking department, came bounding out of the elevator and instantly apologized to the woman for being late. They all crumpled a bit at that disappointment and huddled together in quiet solidarity. At 5:40, Dottie broke the silence. "We've been waiting for over an hour. They're not coming. They don't want to be found." "Maybe they didn't see the signs," Ted ventured, loosening the knot in his tie. "I mean, this is a big city. You can walk and ride around for a week straight and never go down the same street twice. And if they do see a flyer later on, they can always still call, right?" Gail nodded, and Bobby gave Dottie a one-armed hug. None of it changed Dottie's certainty that the author was not going to come forward. Not now, not ever. There was no story the next month. However, one did come There was no story the next month. However, one did come the month after that. The story was based in a jazz club in Harlem, but was more about the boy who shined shoes out front. He had a bad foot and a limp, and he was saving up for something. The reader never found out what that something was, because the story ended before he had the money he needed. The point seemed to be more about his desire to have something for himself, rather than his accomplishing his goal. The envelope the Harlem story came in was addressed to Dottie. The envelope the Harlem story came in was addressed to Dottie. After that, all of them were addressed to her. Only the name addressed to her. The only name listed on the flyer. After that, all of them were addressed to her. The only name listed on Dottie. After that, all of them were addressed to her. The only name listed on the flyer. Done. Alrighty. Well, now that we had like 3/4 of the book on Instagram not actually being able to be heard, which sucks. Sorry. I didn't realize that was happening. I'm pretty sure it was working the other times. I must have done something when I set up the interview on the last Whiskey Wednesday, so sorry. Check out the YouTube. And then for a little bit of time on Twitch, there'll be the VOD of it, but So, all right, that's pretty much done. All I'm going to do now is just export the whole thing. We came in, it looks like 40 minutes and 28-ish seconds, 29-ish seconds, 27-ish seconds, somewhere in there. We'll just say 425 rounded down for good measure. But yeah, that was the story. I hope you all enjoyed it. For those of you that were here could actually hear it. Bookstories was written by Sarah Tollok. And it's just the first chapter alone. Like, how could you not want to know more, right? The writing is just excellent. Let's blah, blah, blah. Let's do this raw. And export as wave. The next part, you guys probably don't want to see. I'm just going to kind of master it down, check it for kind of the flow, make sure there's proper spacing in between, whatever line of dialogue and the tags he said, she said, make sure they're quiet enough. Check for any noises that maybe I didn't hear or, tummy rumbles that sneak in there. Take care of any kind of pickups that may need to be done. And then go through and master it up to like ACX standards, your standard stuff where your height is negative 3.1 dB. It's in between negative 18 and 23 dB on average, I think, is the goal. Those standards type of things. So I'll just be doing basic stuff to it, going through, doing probably a mouth declick since it's pretty hot in here and I was not drinking a lot. Shame on me. So I'm probably extra lip smacky. But I'll go through and remove stuff like that first. And then I'll go through and do probably an EQ and then a bit of compression. Always needs like a little bit of compression. Compression is, simply put, making the loud stuff quiet and the quiet stuff loud. It's based on a ratio. But that always makes like the waveform kind of stretch and mold to what you want to get it closer to that, consistent kind of sound. But you don't want to overdo it, because if you overdo it, you get this like pumping kind of thing where it's like you can kind of hear the like amplitude getting kicked up and cut. Like it's weird. You'll know it when you hear it. So it's a gentle kind of process. I think voice is like 2-to-1 to 3-to-1 on the ratio. You guys don't care about this, but that's what I'll be doing kind of next. Just kind of cleaning it up, going through the mastering process, making sure everything's kind of good and within standards in terms of the quality after I go through and make sure all the technical bits are done. So that's pretty much it. So I have, maybe 40 minutes of work, 30 minutes of work left to it, and it'll be done. And I can email it out to Sarah there, and then she can use it for anything she wants to use it for, or not use it. Doesn't matter. But she can use it for promotion for the books, like, Instagram. I see that quite a bit. It's kind of popular now where they'll put like their book, and then below it, just like a 30-second like read of a part of it, and it may have like a little bit of animation or something going, like some sparklies or twinklies or something. But that's like a popular thing now on Instagram, so you can use that to market with or whatever, just to kind of get people going back in towards your book, right? Another kind of media to catch their attention and be, ooh, what's this? Oh, that sounds cool. I want to read that. And then they go and they buy the book, right? So that's kind of the whole point behind it. But anyways, I am going to get out of this super hot booth. I'm going to open the door right now because I'm not recording. Oh, that is so nice. I'm going to go upstairs. I'm going to put us on a brief BRB screen and play some music like we did last time until I can physically walk back up the stairs. We'll talk. We'll finish off that whiskey for Whiskey Wednesday, and we'll talk about next stream and what's coming up next. So stay with me. I'll be right there with you, and we'll talk just a little bit more, and then we'll go from there. Alrighty? So let me switch that over here, and I'll see you in just a second. Maybe as I figure out where my BRB screen is. Yeah. I hear that from here. Hey everybody, and I'm back up here. Got out of that hot booth. Got out of the hot booth. All right, I might have missed a couple of things from chat, so let me check in here. The Mute Freak. Maximus Decimus Meridius, commander that... Okay, all right. Love it, The Mute Freak. Love it. Good introduction. Great movie, by the way, too. Love that movie. Gladiator. And if you're still here, not sure if you are, have you seen the new one, and did you like it? I actually do some narration for a newspaper that does audio versions of the articles for those that are unable to read the actual physical paper. That's called Tumbleweird, and it's out of the Tri-Cities area in Washington. And one of the articles that I narrate on kind of a monthly basis is the movie review one. And I had just seen the new Gladiator movie, and then I got to read an article about it, kind of an opinion piece on it. And it's really cool how different perspectives break down different movies and pieces of artwork, right? Like movies are. So it's fascinating to read. I love reading for that paper anyways. It's just kind of fun. And I need to read more, but I've been swamped with actual audiobook work, which is good. I'm not complaining. I want to have a lot of audiobook work, right? So keep it coming. And as a matter of fact, after this stream, I'm going to go back down to that hot booth and do some recording for an audiobook. So that I'll be announcing here soon. I just got to get the author's okay to say that, hey, it's okay to say that I'm working on it. Since it's the second book in the series, so I don't know if there's a little bit of timing she wanted to have. Anyways, I'll be announcing it here soon. Stay tuned. I'll let you know. I won't keep you hanging. So I think that's going to pretty much do it for our stream today. Just real quick, let me put this back here in the chat. And then let me copy this and paste it into Instagram for those of you that might still be hanging around on there. I don't actually think there's anybody in there right now, but just in case, there's the link to Sarah Tollok's website where you can pick up your very own copy of Bookstories by the person named Sarah Tollok. And there's a little bit of information about the book in the other chats there about what we just read. And if you really enjoyed it like I did, I encourage you, go to Sarah's website and pick yourself up a copy. So buy it direct if you can. There's certain websites that are very popular that aren't, given the best in terms of commission to the authors. So, buy it directly from them if you can, or like a Barnes & Noble or something like that. And by the way, if you didn't know, because we talked about this with, I think we talked about this with Corey on the last Whiskey Wednesday. If a place doesn't have a book like your, local bookstore or even library, you can ask them to stock that book for you, and they'll do that for you. So if there's a book that you see on here or really anywhere that you'd like to get your hands on, ask for them to stock it, and they will. And I bet you the author would be appreciative too. Yes, sir. And I think that's going to do it, though, for the stream for the night. Let me check real quick to see if there's anybody on Twitch that we could hand off to. And go from there. Yeah, there are. There's actually 2 that I'm thinking about right now. Let's see. Is the other... There's another voice actor that's on sometimes as well. Doesn't look like they are on tonight. That's fine. We can hand you over to another writing and reading stream after this if you're on the Twitches. If not, I'll be saying good night to you here, and until next time. Speaking of next time, that'll be next Wednesday, hopefully. Monday, I will not be doing the Macabre Monday like I didn't do this Monday. This Monday was kind of a rush to the last minute, and I just couldn't get it to work. So we didn't have a Macabre Monday. There will not be a Macabre Monday this next Monday. I'll be taking care of some family stuff that we got to get done. So unfortunately, no stream this Monday, but there will be a Whiskey Wednesday. Again, kind of doing this same thing where we live record an author's first chapter that we might have done before. So, who's that going to be? Stay tuned. I'll see you on Wednesday. Actually, I'll probably announce it this weekend or on next Monday. You'll know. But yes, stay tuned. You'll know. 6 p.m., 5 p.m., 6 p.m. PST is what we're going to aim for. It depends on who I line up next. If it's an East Coast author, I try, if I can, to do an hour earlier at 5 p.m., but usually it's going to be at 6 p.m. PST. Might change that, though. Stay tuned. I'll let you know. But I will see you next Wednesday. Look for the announcements on social medias and stuff, on Facebook, Threads, Instagram, all those kind of fun places. I'm on all of them. Just check them out, and I'll let you know what the schedule's going to be. And then when I have that, I'll try to update that on Twitch for you folks over there as well. With that said, I think we're going to cut off the Instagram here. Thank you very much for joining me on Instagram. If you did tonight from there, good night, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye. YouTube, same thing. I'm going to cut you all off here too. Thank you so much for joining me on YouTube. And really, if you're watching this afterwards, that's kind of the place to go so that you don't have to have the ads. You know what I mean? Not that I said that at all. Twitch doesn't watch this channel. I'm too small. But anyways, I'll talk to you all next time as well. YouTube. Good night. Now, it's just us, Twitch. It's just us.